In this video, we're going to review the data shortcut methodologies and some simple practices for use in AutoCAD Civil 3D. These all apply in 12, 13, and 14. The first thing to recognize about Civil 3D is that Civil 3D looks for a specific folder structure, and after that it looks for the data shortcut XML link data. Civil 3D only cares about a project if you do, and you should at all times. You should always have a project. You always want a project because you do not want to publish the drawings that you work in and create the model in. Therefore, for the essential things like surfaces, alignments, profiles, etc., you're going to want to publish data references in published drawings, not your actual model drawing. Data shortcuts simply act like a website because that's exactly what it is. It just happens to be XML based. When we create a data shortcut, we are merely publishing an XML link to the data shortcut object in Civil 3D. It always looks for a folder location, and that's the key to the working folder. Civil 3D allows you an immense amount of liberty about how you want to employ projects. By default, it employs a shared project methodology. The data shortcuts are published, therefore they work across many projects. That shortcuts folder that it's looking for, it's always looking for one down from wherever you set your working folder. Over in Windows Explorer, I have a number of projects here. The first project has a shortcuts folder under its root. So if I set my working folder to Civil 3D projects, then it will find this project. Let's close up that project. It will find project number 2 as well. If I look at project number 3, its shortcut folder is another level down, which is our classic project-based method. The fourth project I have has no data shortcuts at all, simply has an empty drawing in it. So Civil 3D, if we look at these shortcuts, you'll notice there are no files in here at all, only placeholder text files, if anything. All it is looking for is that shortcuts folder by default. In AutoCAD Civil 3D, how does this express itself? Well, first thing, we have to make sure our working folder is pointed somewhere. We could do that from the Manage ribbon by the Set Working Folder length. And I'm going to set it to that Civil 3D projects. And you can see I have 4 project folders. Civil 3D will automatically connect me to the first project shortcuts folder it finds. Therefore, it's always probably a good idea to have a bogus project at the top of your alphabetical stack of projects. If I set my data shortcuts project folder, in other words, set it to the folder, you'll see I have 2 projects that it finds from that working folder location. Project number 1 and project number 2. If I set it to 2, it will change my project. If I want my project, on the other hand, to be my project actually be project based, let's set our working folder to my project number 3, which had that folder shortcuts folder buried one down, and instead of setting to the root of all project, I'll set it specifically to this project. Therefore, it's going to look down and find that data shortcuts folder there. one folder removed from wherever you set the working folder is the rule. We're automatically connected to that project. Now we have a connection to a project-based folder, and if I go to set project folders, it will only have one, and only one will be available. Happens to be called data shortcuts in this case. Can be called anything I want to call it. Whatever that folder is, you just take the folder above where it finds the shortcut folder, and that will be where your little website is that shares the data shortcut links. To review on the slide, if you use the project-based method, you as a user, you must set your working folder to the root of all projects, and as a user, you must set to the correct project to publish and create data for references appropriately. In a project-centric method, you only have to set your working folder to the project itself, and then the project selection is going to be automatically set by default to publish from that single location. Our products ship with example project data sets that employ this project-centric method, which is typically easier for users to get their head around and employ on a regular basis. If I need to change from one project work to another, I only have to remember to set my working folder. I don't have to remember to pick the right project, so I'm not accidentally publishing shortcuts to the wrong folder or creating references from the wrong project in a drawing. So using the shared project method, it's actually much easier to get confused, and you do have to pay careful attention to both where your working folder is and the project selection is mandatory discipline. Actually, both data shortcuts methods may be employed in your projects. They're not mutually exclusive. For example, your design people all employ shared projects, but survey employs project-centric projects. For example, how would that work and look like? And while we're at it, over in AutoCAD Civil 3D, we'll create a new project, and in it set up things for both methods to work in that project. Over in Civil 3D, Civil 3D has great tools to create a project from what is called the Civil 3D project template, and it will create shortcuts for you automatically within that project. So Civil 3D has a great tool to create a new project or create a new data shortcuts folder in any sort of a project. Let's first simply create new data shortcuts in a project that does not yet have data shortcuts in it. Over in Windows Explorer, our 2004 project only has a drawings folder and nothing else, and there is absolutely nothing in this project at all. There are no drawings, there are no files at all at this point. I would like to make this a project folder and create a data shortcuts to work with drawings at this location. So there are tools to do this, but before I do anything, I need to make sure my working folder is in the right place. Civil 3D assumes that you understand that you need to set your working folder somewhere, even to create new shortcuts. So we're going to set our working folder to this project location right here. So we're going to set a folder, and we're going to set the project that we want to create new data shortcuts to this location in my 04 project. So my working folder, it does not find the little website, so I effectively need to use a Civil 3D tool called New Shortcuts folder to create that. and I can name it anything I want. I'm just going to use the shorthand of DS, so it's going to make a DS folder. In this case, I'm not going to use a project template, and I'm going to just say OK, and it will connect me to that project, make the DS folder, and make the whole subfolder structure. In Windows Explorer, we'll see we now have a DS with shortcuts under it and all the appropriate folders. It does create one XML file that says who created the project, and in that file it keeps your user ID from your Windows operating system or from your network. Nothing else gets created, just the folder structure is made. There are no links yet, so there is nothing in any of the locations. So that's as easy as it is to begin to share shortcuts. Let's make a brand new project this time around, and we'll create a 2013-05 project that employs this idea of a project template. So we're going to set our working folder above and set it to this location. And Civil 3D automatically connects me to the top project. Always remember, or the last project you were in at that location. So whenever you set your working folder, Civil 3D's got a little bit of memory going on in a session and remembers, oh, the last time you were connected to the 02 project. So pay attention. But we're going to make a brand new project. So we're going to again run the shortcut folder creation, and we're going to name this project 2013-05, and we're going to use a project template, and you can browse to a location as a place where it looks for project templates. I'm going to take the one from our instant on, and I want to point above where the projects are. Here's our default US blank one, which includes sheet sets, data shortcut folders, etc., all built into it already. My project template happens to be called US blank, and it can be modified to include anything you want, and we will make this project. And it will set you to that project. And we'll do the set project folder link, and you will see that by default, when you create a new project, it creates a shortcuts folder at the root of this folder. Therefore, you have shortcuts at that location. Let's say OK, and we'll hop again over into the Explorer, and we created the new project. It's got all the folders, and I have a shortcuts folder at that location, which is why it appears based on my working folder location, which is Civil 3D Projects. It sees the shortcut folder, and therefore I get all of these. Down here under Data Shortcuts, I have a project-based one with all those same folders. So I can actually delete that shortcut folder from Civil 3D's automatic process and convert myself over to project-based. Now I need to set my folder to the project location, which is 05. And it finds my data shortcuts folder, and now I have a project-based folder. If I want both to be in place, I want design to have a shared set of projects and survey to have a different folder structure. Let's go back over to Explorer and look at this carefully. I want my shortcuts folder not to be in this location, but I want my shortcuts folder to be up in the project. Under my existing conditions, which is perhaps where I want my survey people to work, I want another copy of that folder structure. So I can copy the shortcuts folder and simply put one under existing conditions. Now I have both project-based ones, and we'll see I also have shared locations. If I set my working folder to the top of all projects and check my project folder, you'll see I have an 05 project. If I set my working folder to 05 itself, which is a folder above that data shortcuts now down in existing conditions, it will show me that my shortcuts are in existing conditions. This would allow me to publish shortcuts out of Survey in either or both, depending upon where I want to set my working folder, and I can use file restrictions, etc., to take, QA survey data and publish it up, or surfaces up into one project, but maintain a separate project to make sure that the QA and the data and everything else works the same. We saw in this brief video both data shortcut methods can be employed, and they can be employed simultaneously. Civil 3D employs a shared project methodology, which really requires you to make sure you have the correct project selected each time. Civil 3D will read from drawings that have data references in them about which project they are connected to. That's called association. Back over in Civil 3D, if we have a drawing, you can associate a project to the current drawing. And if it's associated with a different project, this will change the project association. If you have a folder of drawings, alright, you can run the tool and simply select where you are based on your working folder. Notice again, if we want to associate a whole bunch of drawings, move them from one project to another, for example, have them look at different data shortcuts, etc., you need to set your working folder before you do any work on the change. I can take any drawing, and my current drawing I can associate to this project. Since I'm linked down to existing conditions, it's now associated with that project. If I change my working folder uphill to 05 and make sure I'm in the right project, now associate the project to that drawing. Now my current drawing, which happens to be called Drawing 02, if I saved it, it would remember that I was connected to 04, and when I open that drawing, will connect you to that project. If there's no association, no data references have been created in the drawing, Civil 3D really doesn't care unless you have manually set up the association, and the association can be changed at any time with those simple and basic tools. So in this short video, we learned about the basic methodology and practice for data shortcuts in AutoCAD Civil 3D. If you employ a Vault implementation of Civil 3D, the practices are pretty much the same. The only significant differences are access to the database and the fact that Vault virtualizes the drawings and the drawing names and keeps versions of things, but the data shortcut processes work effectively exactly the same and employ the same ideas even inside a Vault structure.